Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here, and there's been a $400 top-up for some parents, a pause on student interest, as well as a $300 potentially gift for some students, as well as a $20,000 grant for some business owners that has just been announced over the past couple days. And while usually on the channel we talk about benefits and programs that can be applied to everyone in the country, these federal programs, these benefits are on a provincial level because just over the past couple of days, 2 different major provinces have announced their budgets and what's going to be inside of them. So even if these aren't your provinces, I recommend watching all of this video so that you can understand what programs are going on in other provinces so that you can hold your own provincial government accountable for what other provinces are getting and the way that your province is actually handling the funds they're getting to deal with the pandemic. So in today's video, we're going to go over each of the benefits or programs that I've mentioned, who can actually apply for them, and how you can apply for them if you're eligible. But first, make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up your own investment account and take your own wealth into your own hands. It seems we can't rely on anyone but ourselves these days when it comes to our personal finance. All right, let's dive into this. So all of these announcements came out of the provincial budgets that were just released over the past 2 days. Now, the first one was released in Ontario, and the second one was released in Quebec. And if you watched my previous video about the new federal budget that's coming out, you'll understand why I'm so excited about that federal budget, because it's going to introduce programs like this for the entire country, not just a province by province basis. So mark your calendars for April 19th because we're going to be live streaming the federal version of these programs when that actually happens and is announced on that April 19th date. That's what's going to be actually coming to every single Canadian. But for now, let's start with the Support for Learners grant that has been recently topped up in Ontario. So if you're a parent in Ontario, you might already know about the Support for Learners grant. Now, this was initially set up as a sum of money that was paid out to parents who had children under the age of 12. Now, since there has been some pushback on that saying, hey, it's actually expensive to have a kid who's all the way up until high school age, they've broadened the net for this program, and it's anybody who is up to grade 12 who can receive this, any child who's up to grade 12. Now, the amount that it's been topped up by is $400 for students under that grade 12 level, as well as $500 per student if the student has special needs. Let me show you the official announcement so you can hear it right from the horse's mouth. So this is the Finance Minister, Peter Bethlenfalvy, who is the new guy in this role for Ontario since the former Finance Minister was axed from his job after they found out, hey, he had traveled for a tropical vacation. You might remember that news story if you're from Toronto. It made some pretty big waves. But let's listen to what he has to say here about the Support for Learners grant extension.
Mr. Speaker, every parent in Ontario has faced new pressures due to COVID-19. For some, that includes financial challenges caused by the pandemic. For many, it includes new expenses to support virtual learning or childcare. And for all, it includes anxiety about their child's future in a world that will look different than it does today. Now, while our government can't make this pressure go away, we can provide a helping hand. So to put more money in parents' pockets, we are providing a third round of payments through the Ontario COVID-19 Child Benefit. This announcement today brings the total direct support we have provided families since March of 2020 to $1.8 billion.
I wonder how much that is on an individual basis. I think you might get into that.
Mr. Speaker, the payment will be doubled to $400 per child and $500 per child for each child with special needs. And consider what that means for a family with 3 young children, including one with special needs. They will have received $2,600 through the Ontario COVID-19 Child Benefit.
Okay.
That is real and meaningful relief. It won't solve every problem, but it helps. And it's one of the simplest, quickest, and most direct ways we can make a difference.
Okay, so that's a pretty significant announcement. So that amount of money could make a difference for many parents who are struggling right now, especially with kids who are stuck learning at home. They've had to buy laptops, they've had to buy extra books, extra supplies, so certainly that extra money will be appreciated by many parents in the province. If you're curious about how to actually apply for this benefit, you may be in luck if you're already receiving the Canada Child benefit, because you sign up in the same way. They determine whether or not you are eligible for it by your children's age, and they sort of look at the Canada Child benefit records to determine that. I have a video that I made last time there was a support for learners bump up, which shows you how to apply for this benefit. So if you're interested in double checking to make sure that you are on the list for people who are going to receive this because you have a child under that grade 12 age, then check out the link in the description where there's going to be a video that I made, again, previously, walking you through all the steps to make sure that you're on that list. Next up, we have some support for post-secondary students. Now, typically across the country, there hasn't been much support for people in this age group, at least from a provincial level. We did have the Canada Emergency Student Benefit at the beginning of the pandemic for many post-secondary age students, but after that ended, they've kind of been falling through the cracks in many cases. Now, recently in Quebec, they released their budget, and they said that they're actually going to be doing some major things to help students. Let's take a look at what they are, and maybe you can think about why this isn't happening in your province if it isn't already. So here's information on exactly what that looks like. They say that post-secondary students will get a break on their loans, getting 1 year interest-free, as well as a gift of $100 per semester for the current year. It's part of another massive spending plan of $1.5 billion for education to allow every young person to reach his or her potential, and that came from the finance minister of Quebec. This is supposed to entice students to hit the books again, and it's not just about fixing the damage of last year, but also about Quebec's bigger hopes pinned to the economic recovery. Education is part of increasing the economic potential of Quebec, and it's very important. Man, I can't talk today. So obviously this is made up of two components. The first one is the interest-free portion, and the other one is the $100 per semester gift for the current year. I believe this is for 2021. Now, for interest-free, it's not clear whether or not this applies to people who are recent graduates of post-secondary studies. Remember, this is the category of people who have been really struggling because they're being forced to pay back their student loans, right? They're out of that sort of period where you don't have to pay it back immediately. I wonder if this interest applies to them specifically. We're going to have to wait for details on that. But for current students, it seems that every semester that you are in school for 2021, you should be able to get $100. So I believe, at least when I was going to school, this was structured in 3 semesters over the course of the year. Now, don't quote me on this because things may have changed, but when I was going there was the fall semester, there was the winter semester, and then there was the summer semester that sort of like crammed in all of that summer learning. So that could be potentially up to $300 per student if you're taking a full year of courses and you don't have that summer off. So it should be at least a little bit of help for a group of people who have seemed to fall through the cracks in many of the previous government programs. And finally, there has been an expansion to a previous business program, a grant program inside of Ontario. Let's listen to that announcement.
So today, we are announcing a second payment to the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, so that eligible small businesses will automatically receive a second payment in the amount equal to their first.
So this is a pretty big expansion for people who have small businesses in Ontario. You'll remember the maximum for the previous small business grant was $20,000, and they're potentially doubling that for this second round, or doubling the amount that has been provided in total. If you received $20,000 last time, it seems you're going to receive the same amount this time, an extra $20,000. Now, you'll remember that it sort of scales based on a number of factors how much you can actually receive, but I will link down in the description a video that I had previously made. In this video, I go over how to apply and all of the eligibility requirements, so this should be where you go if you haven't already received the Small Business Support Grant. So that covers some highlights from both Ontario's provincial budget and Quebec's provincial budget. Now, we are still waiting on new budgets from other provinces across the country, so stay tuned for more information on that and highlights about different programs that you may be eligible for. And as of right now, how does all of this compare to what's going on in your province? If you don't live in Ontario or Quebec, does this sort of stack up equally to what you've been receiving through your provincial government, or are you largely having to wait for things from the federal government to get any sort of support? Let me know down in the comments. I'd be interested in hearing what your take is. These are all some pretty significant promises that are being rolled out, and as a result, you can probably understand why I'm so pumped about the April 6th or April 19th date. I believe that's the date for the federal budget, the first one in 2 years from the federal government. So programs that were announced in these provincial budgets, these are just a small slice of what we're likely expecting to receive and hear about inside of that federal budget. But of course, we're going to be covering that as soon as it happens. But until then, make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up your own investment accounts. We have to take our wealth into our own hands these days. It's increasingly clear. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. channel is supported by viewers like you. Thanks, channel members.